Hey everyone, welcome. Tonight is Poets for Power, a South Asian queer poetry night featuring Priyanka Paul, Alok, Vaid, Menon, and Fatimah Asghar. We're so excited y'all can join us. We had over 500 RSVPs. We have people from all over the world, Europe, Africa, Australia, South Asia, of course. Welcome, welcome. We are disabling chat for the first couple of minutes and experimenting with opening up. Hopefully none of y'all motherfuckers are trolls. We hope all of you are good people. We love y'all. We're excited. This weekend was actually supposed to be Desi Queer Diaspora, which was a national conference in North America for Desi queers in Austin, Texas. So all of us queer babies in America and Canada were supposed to be in Austin, but that got postponed, unfortunately. So now we're all here. And I'm going to play some music. Hopefully you can hear. If it sucks, let me know. I'll turn it off. I know sound is a little funny. But welcome to Poets for Power. We have 100 people in. People are joining us. People are excited. Hi y'all, welcome, welcome. Welcome everyone. We're giving people 5 minutes to join. You have a couple of minutes to get warmed up, get your drinks. If you're fasting, get your prayer mats, get your books out, get your pens. We're gonna get started in about 5 minutes. We're letting people settle in. We are listening to a Qawwali icon, Abida Parveen. Welcome. Our artists are joining us. Welcome everyone. जीत गई तो पिया जो मैं हारी शाम की सब चीज़ से ना मिलाएंगे शाम की Welcome to everyone who joined. We're about to get started in 1 minute. You can go ahead and chat in any questions. You can use the Q&A feature. We're going to get started in about 1 minute. So use the chat feature. Tell us where you're from, how you're doing, what you're excited about for tonight. We have some wonderful poets for you tonight. It's a South Asian queer celebration. We have a birthday in the house. Happy birthday, Caitlin. I feel like a DJ. Like, happy fucking birthday. It's super exciting. Welcome. We have a question about how we're all so beautiful. We could get ready for this. This is the event of the weekend for us. Welcome, everyone. Join. Get your drinks, your snacks. We're listening to Abida Parveen for another more minute, and we're going to jump right in. All right, y'all. Welcome to South Asian Poets for Power. Tonight is going to be such a special night. We are having some wonderful artists from all over the country and the world join us. We have Alok, Vaid, Menon, Priyanka Paul, Fatimah Asghar joining us for a poetry night featuring and centering South Asian queer poets. We have so many languages in the house, over 500 people RSVP to this event. It is major for us to have these three legendary poets in one room together. We have so many wonderful people who are looking for connection. We're looking for gems that are going to bring us into a different way of being. For many of us, poetry is a sacred art form. My name is Sharmin Hussain. I am the political director of Equality Labs, and I am so excited to be here tonight. That music that we listened to was by Abida Parveen, and we had Chop Tilak playing, and you can go to Coke Studio on YouTube and enjoy some amazing Qawwali music. It's the holy month of Ramadan for many of our Muslim folks. We're on the last 10 days of fasting, so many of us are fasting and we're here, and we're really excited to be here with y'all tonight. I'm going to be hosting the event, and later we're going to have Monica, our communications director, take over for a question and answer. So you can use the chat feature as well as the Q&A feature to enter in your questions. We're so excited to hear from all of you. Many of you are folks that have been connected to Equality Labs or are learning about Equality Labs, and you're more than welcome to ask us all the questions that you have about the artists, their art form, their journey, as well as our work. I'm going to start off telling y'all a little bit about Equality Labs. Many of you have heard about this event through Alok or Fatima or Priyanka. It's hosted by Equality Labs, and we are a political home for South Asian progressives. We are an Ambedkarite organization that uses power building, community research, culture-shifting art, digital security to end the oppression of caste apartheid, Islamophobia, white supremacy, and religious intolerance. We use methods that are intersectional. We use practical tools for our communities to make new interventions into long-standing systems of oppression. Equality Labs centers the leadership of South Asian, caste-oppressed, queer, and religious minority communities. We are continuously redefining what it means to be South Asian. We are decentering upper caste narratives and upper caste work. We are working towards a progressive South Asian political power building model that ends white supremacy and anti-Blackness, but crucially ends our internal hegemonies. And these internal hegemonies are caste, language, geography, gender, sexuality, and religion. Equality Labs works towards dynamic South Asian feminist futures for and by religious and cultural minorities in the diaspora. We create spaces where women, femmes, gender nonconforming folks, intersex, non-binary, and trans leaders are the architects of the solutions that we need. We are working to ensure all South Asian communities are created with equity. I'm so glad that you guys joined us. Make sure that you follow us, equalitylabs.org. Tonight is a free event, thanks to the beautiful artists that have donated their time, but you can donate to Equality Labs to sustain this work. We are continuing to host virtual programming and supporting thousands of people across the world who want to do digital security work as well as power building work. So make sure that you donate, send a love note, donate to the artists, visit their Instagrams, and support South Asian queer artists. Tonight's Poets for Power is going to be a night of celebrating and centering South Asian queer poetry. We believe that South Asian queer folks are the architects of our culture, so we're more than excited to host this night with the artists that you're going to see tonight. The other thing that I'll say is you can once again enter your questions in the chat, and our artists are going to have a chat amongst themselves to talk about their work and how they got where they are. So please welcome all of these artists with your woo and your chats and all the things and your love. We're really excited. Our first artist for the night is Priyanka Paul. And Priyanka Paul is an illustrator, poet, writer, storyteller, and creator. Her work has been featured on the Fader, Hindustan Times, Femina, the Huffington Post, India Today, and Buzzfeed. You can find her on all social media platforms at Art Whoring and learn more about her work. Welcome, Priyanka.
Hi, Shaman. Thank you for that introduction. As Shaman said, hi, I'm Priyanka Paul. I'm known on Instagram and Twitter as Art Whoring. I'm an illustrator and a poet, and I do a bunch of other things as well. My work mostly is based on the themes of social justice and exploring self-identity. I talk about my experience of marginalization in India. I talk about being a Bahujan, queer, Christian woman. And that's also what my poetry revolves around. I'm really nervous, if you can't say, and extremely thankful to Equality Labs for giving me this space, which I'm extremely honored. I'm gonna start with this. I'm gonna change because I made like there's images in the background for this. My first poem doesn't have a title, but we're going to make up one now, and it's called Orange. I used to like the color orange. It reminds me of the marigolds the flower man leaves outside our house every day so we can float them in our antique urli. It's filled with 3 parts water and 1 part flowers, but you'll never miss the flowers. It reminded me of gajar halwa. My mama's friend brings it over before Diwali, before Christmas. Orange reminds me of the mangoes in April, sliced and served with vanilla ice cream on steel plates. Not ceramic, never ceramic. Orange flowers lined the roads outside church, and no one asked why they were colored orange. No one wanted it changed. Orange also reminds me of iced cola. Crushed ice scraped and filled into glasses. Convinced somehow ice shards won't cut me. Orange now feels like the only color poured over you on Holi. It's the hot pink that stays behind your ears, in your scalp, between your fingers. Only they throw this orange at you throughout the year. These color packets are boldly marked as toxic, and even your animals aren't safe. Razia auntie no longer puts saffron in her biryani. She says it's too expensive, or it's just too much of a cost to pay perhaps. I no longer want people dressed in white and saffron, spewing from their mouth rancor and abhorrence. This orange just feels like the orange juice in my freshly brushed mouth. My teeth are brittle and my gums are bleeding. I used to like the color orange. Before it became a metaphor for bloodshed, and orange has always been just a shade away from red. That was the first poem. I'm going to change my background. Okay. This poem is called From the Margin, and I believe it's my best work, and it's also super important to me. It was the first time I think I talked about caste and how I navigate caste in my life, and how I find myself often in Savarna spaces where there is no discourse about caste, where no one talks about being a Bahujan, or how it's always spoken about in a very rural sense of the term, and even the very limited discourse that you will find in mainstream about caste comes from upper caste individuals. And for me, this was important. This was important for me. This poem is also about how a large Indian upper class and upper caste audience have no understanding of caste or even acknowledge their privilege, but are very empathetic of the Black struggle and appropriate it, while remaining ignorant of their own status as oppressors. The poem seeks to draw parallels between race struggle and caste struggle, but also I need to say that the dynamics of both of these are vastly different. My woke friend wears a Black Lives Matter shirt to class, the weight of which doesn't weigh down on his back like it should. I've never known a Black person too well, yet to take their weight on my shoulders seems impressive and yet offensive. Kendrick Lamar tops playlist. The man is great, but I don't relate. Boys reiterate the need to say the word related to slaves. The word Black people died inscribed on their graves. You're saying the wrong N-word. Scrolling in on your in-shots, narrow discussions in your Savarna cohorts, say Naxals, say Naxal Bari, say Northeast unrest, say Nariwad. Oh well, go back to Kendrick Lamar. Don Cheadle with the real questions, a sucker for a diplomat. 2 first names, yo, what's up with that? A feeble attempt at denouncing caste, how you're gonna outrun the pyramids of your past. Yvette Smith, Michael Brown, Damien Rice, your Facebook post, a social justice sympathy heist. And your angst won't suffice, your ignorance comes at a price, Rohit Vemula's death, nah, I won't make it to this reprise. I'm spitting verses out here if I could only spit names. The media is telling me whose head is worth a headline, and the men originating from feet, their blood's not written about with an ink. Now I'm here about no Black struggle, no American problem, read a book about his struggle. I'm here for a made in India struggle, a centuries-old shackled struggle. I'm here for a brown struggle. I'm here to tell you this color, there's no one kind of brown. Some of you ain't even brown. You got this Kinder Joy shit going down. Your fair and lovely shit for them brown girls, you say, not all brown girls brown, and your white girls ain't fair. I got Aryan propaganda so far up my ass. When you cry reservation, I'll sympathize with your crass. Light up a cigarette in your goddamn sorrow. God-induced systems of privilege, oppressed and risen in indigo. Your tobacco smoke blinds you to the men, down in the drain, smoking of their own, smoking methane. Boy, your Tumblr Reddit shit don't mean shit to me. Your pieces and shit politically replete. On my college entrance exam, they asked me what I want to be. Wrote princess in my scribbly unclassed writing. Mama told me princesses were part of a backward monarchy. Bitch, I'm OBC, I'm deemed backward already. I'm a brown bitch prince. I'm a brown bitch princess and I'm too brown. Got no glass but live in a castle somehow. Only glass ceilings in here, buddy. You out here talking caste like it's only a rural study. But why do you even care? Unless it's on a t-shirt. Or you got a rapper with no hose money car on this slur reclamation stage saying chama without the R. Okay. This is the last one.
Everyone is raving about your amazing backgrounds. People love it.
Okay, so this one, I mean, I'm not even going to explain it. This one's about a lot about, it's about menstruation and in India, how it's such a big taboo, and how there's this huge temple where women aren't allowed because you might be menstruating, and gods are gonna be mad at you. Mother, I stand at your entrance, drenched in sweat and blood, my legs parted, blood flowing, my uterus menstruating. The guards at your entrance hold up red flags, hold up saffron flags, tell me my body is impure. But mother, you told me my body was a temple, that I was holy, that my veins were the roots of a tree, that my skin was one with the earth. How could nature be impure, unless polluted by human hands and minds? Mother, I'm a temple, but these men don't ask for permission to enter. Mother, I'm a temple, but they walk in, demanding my presence at the sanctum. Mother, I'm a temple. These men scream wild words as prayers. Mother, I'm not allowed into my own temple. They speak of a man called God. They say, God forbids you, your blood, your aura. But mother, in my temple, when God forbids, I forbid God. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. People are really raving. I forbid God. Someone asked, where can people read your poetry?
It's on my Instagram. So you can go at @horing and you can find all of it there. It's with all the images, which you can't see here, but like on the page, you can see the whole illustration.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. People will have a lot more questions for you. We appreciate you and your art, all that you bring.
Thank you.
Amazing. All right, y'all. So this weekend was actually supposed to be Desi Queer Diaspora, which was supposed to take place in Austin, Texas. Thousands of South Asian queers were supposed to descend on the holy city of Austin to get to know each other, to learn about South Asian queer resistance, as well as the ways we can build forward. Unfortunately, due to COVID, it's been postponed. So that's why we decided to hold a weekend of events. And we will continue hosting events centering South Asian queer resistance, centering Dalit, Bahujan, Adivasi artists that are often left out of the mainstream. And we really hope that you send us emails and messages recommending your favorite artists. We think it's so important to disrupt the upper caste ecosystems that have continuously suppressed, gaslit, and violated people that come from religious and cultural minority backgrounds. At Equality Labs, we're working actively to make sure that these voices are centered in our work. Thank you so much for chatting in with us. Continue asking questions and give a round of applause from your living room or wherever you are for our next performer, Alok, Vaid, Menon. Alok is a gender nonconforming writer and performance artist. Their eclectic style and poetic challenge to the gender binary have been internationally renowned. As a mixed media artist, Alok uses poetry, comedy, performance, lecture, drag, sound art, fashion design, self-portraiture, and social media to explore themes of gender, race, trauma, belonging, and the human condition. Another fun fact about Alok is that their first performance in New York when they moved here was actually for my event called Beats for Bangladesh. When the Rana Plaza collapse happened and thousands of Bangladeshi garment workers were murdered by capitalist corporations, your favorite companies, Forever 21, The Gap, ASOS, right? These companies have all violated human rights and labor rights laws for generations. And when it came time to support Bangladeshi garment workers, a bunch of New York City organizers got together and we hosted a fundraiser. And we sent over $10,000 worth of remittances towards garment workers who needed their medical bills paid, as well as accountability for these major corporations that were destroying my homeland of Bangladesh. So Alok has been a friend of mine for almost a decade, and we have been working actively to think about what would a queer visionary resistance look like that doesn't center cisgendered upper caste people and instead is grounded in the resilience of people like us that are darker skinned, that are hairier, that are fatter, that are the people that don't also like make it to the magazine covers. So give a big round of applause for Alok and welcome them to the Poetry Night. Hi,
Hi.
girl.
Hey. Thanks so much to Charmin and Equality Labs for putting this together. It's so beautiful to share the space, especially with Priyanka, who I've known for a little while every time I go to Mumbai, and I'm fangirling so hard. And for Fatimah, who I actually met in 2012 in Sarajevo in Bosnia and Herzegovina. So there's so many global connections happening. And I just want to say to everyone, please follow the work of Equality Labs. It's so important that we have a Dalit and Muslim-led resistance movement. And I'm so grateful and honored as an upper caste ally to be invited to this space. And I just want to name that the root of transphobia and transmisogyny in South Asian community is Brahmanical patriarchy. And the struggle against gender binarism has to be linked to caste abolition. So thanks so much. For this first poem, I'm reading a poem called They Will Say. And it's one of the first poems in my book of poetry called Femme in Public, which is really fun, so check it out. They will say that femininity is not powerful. They will say we are vain, selfish, and foolish. They will say that we need to focus on the real issues. They will say nothing when we are attacked. They will say that we do not exist until they need someone to blame. They will say that we are imposters, frauds, mistakes. Mostly, they will say that we are ugly. They will say that we should shave, try harder, disappear. Sometimes they will not say, so they will spit, point, grope, laugh instead. They will say that we should die. They will say that death is not enough, so they'll make us suffer. They will say that suffering is not enough, so they'll say that we made it up. They will say the wrong names and pronouns when we are gone. They will say it is our fault. They will erase us from history, family, legacy. They will try to erase us from their fantasies. They will fail. They will bash us in public, they'll want to be us in private. I said they will bash us in public, they'll want to be us in private. They will say that femininity is not powerful, but I have stopped traffic simply by going outside. I have suspended time. I have made everyone watch. I have shed every category, word, and lie. I have etched myself so deep inside, they will never forget me. I have found a way to live forever. They will say that femininity is not powerful, so I'll put on my dress, so I'll go outside, so I'll prove them wrong. So as we're speaking about South Asian queer resistance, I think it's really important to remember that queer resistance always begins with trans women, with hijras, with arvanis, with kotis, with trans feminine people who have long been on the front lines of queer movements in South Asia and the United States and continue to be disappeared. I just learned a story the other day about Sylvia Rivera that I wanted to share, where Sylvia Rivera was actually part of the GAA, the Gay Activist Alliance, before she founded STAR, Street Transvestites Action Revolutionaries, in the 60s. And Sylvia Rivera actually was one of the first gay activists arrested for public protest. And GAA didn't actually think that she was worth a lawyer to defend her. So when she was in the courthouse, being the dynamic person she was, she convinced a straight lawyer there who was representing another case to represent her. And then that guy ended up being the first lawyer for GAA. And that legal collective for GAA ended up becoming Lambda Legal, and Lambda Legal ended up fighting for gay marriage. So this is just one of the many connections of how the labor and the resistance of trans women and trans feminine people ends up making progress for all people as they get erased from the narratives. And you can learn more about that history in an incredible new book that's coming out on June 2nd called The Deviance War, and it's the history of sexuality and sexual politics in the United States. This next poem is about an experience of street harassment that I experienced as a trans feminine person. The issue is a lot of times people tell us as gender nonconforming people that we're minorities, but I really struggle with that appellation because I feel like we've been minoritized. We live in a world that makes it so that you have to be gender conforming in order to be safe or safer. And when you're visibly gender nonconforming, you experience punishment to push you back into the binary. And that punishment often looks like being made into a spectacle. So you're denied your humanity and you're just made into an image for other people to consume. And I was trying to sort of get at that sense of what it means to just be regarded as a metaphor, as a symbol, as a cipher, because I think that's so much of how transmisogyny operates. It's people aren't allowing us to actually be complex, dynamic people. We become one-dimensional tropes for them to advance their own causes. When the 17th person takes a photo without my consent today, I began to wonder if I have a body anymore. A recognition that at some point, so many hands and eyes consumed me that there was simply nothing left for myself. This is what happens when the private parts become public domain. And I say the instead of my because I looked in between my legs and saw a chat forum happening there. I tried to chime in, but got blocked. How naive it would be to believe I could own something that others hold on to so dearly. The other day, my doctor asked me to breathe and I tried, but I forgot how. There was no frame of reference. All the images I remember of myself involved me doing everything but breathing. There is no animated GIF for that. There are hundreds of photos of me circulating in text threads and web forums across the world. Look at this souvenir I found in New York. Look at this thing I saw today at the mall. Hashtag me, hashtag same, hashtag WTF, hashtag goals. What I've learned is that it is only socially permissible to identify with me online. There's a type of loneliness that comes from everyone staring at you, but no one's seeing you. Every time someone takes a photo of me, I want to give them a hug to remind them that I'm real. But the moment a meme becomes a person, the screen cracks and there is violence, body. I've come to the conclusion then that the only place I'm allowed to exist is a photograph. Exhibit A, a costume for a play. Exhibit B, how inspirational, read I would never. A transgressive model breaking down gender norms. Exhibit C, an art installation. Exhibit D, a social media selfie that inspires you to only like the photo, not stop the violence. Exhibit E, share this, LMAO, a monkey wears a dress and calls himself a woman. Exhibit me to prohibit me. So I've been writing a lot of poems in lockdown during pandemic because in the United States, we're seeing some of the highest rates of deaths. And yet the government is seeking to reopen. And what we're beginning to recognize is that the people who are dying, by and large, Black people, Indigenous people, people with disabilities, elders, are not regarded as worthy of living by the administration. And so it strikes me that one of the most important things that we can do is learn how to mourn everyone in their own individuality and learn how to love everyone for their own idiosyncrasies. That love has to actually pay attention to how the contours of a human life can never be encapsulated into a rote statistic, that we have to love beyond the mechanization of murder. The people that I love, they are dying. But there are no funerals, so I shelter this heart in place, read stories of a woman's corpse decomposed in her apartment, deserted nursing homes, parking lots chock full of sleeping bags, empty hotels across the block, pay raises for prisoners to dig the graves, hide the evidence. The opposite of a eulogy is a presidential address. The test results are in. This is the crude calculus of a country that consecrates capital over compassion. I wonder, is grief possible in a language that sanctions someone to call 200,000 people dying a good job in order to die? There has to be consensus that the body was once, in fact, alive. I wonder if these people that I love, if they were ever considered alive, here where worth is commensurate with work, policy is a sanitized death sentence. Dignity is the antithesis of politics. Can we use the same tongue to mourn when they use it to murder? So we've seen a spike in hate violence against East Asians in the United States and East Asian people across the world, and a scapegoating of this virus on East Asian people. And This has always been a tactic to scapegoat a vulnerable minority and demonize them. And about 6 hours away from where I grew up in Texas, a Burmese man and his 2-year-old and 6-year-old were stabbed in a Sam's Club because someone thought that they were spreading the coronavirus. And there's so many stories like this of hate violence against East Asian people that are not making the news and not being documented. And so I wrote a poem to sort of commemorate and to grieve publicly this gross injustice, which a virus is being used to justify people's latent homophobia, transphobia, xenophobia, racism. And while people keep on saying that this virus does not discriminate, the way that it's mapping out does. And we have to pay attention to those nuances. So this is a poem called Racism is the First Language. And that title is a play on the idea of English as a second language classes. A euphemism refers to a more polite, indirect expression that replaces words and phrases regarded as unpleasant, harsh, or too real. Consider the following alternatives to dying: free one's horses, kick the bucket, return to dust. Used in a sentence, in the United States, a reported 7,146 people at the time of this poem are no longer with us due to COVID-19. Consider the following alternatives for racism: Chinese virus. Used in a sentence, I've always treated the Chinese virus very seriously, Donald J. Trump. With a recognition that being alive and Asian American increasingly constitutes a lethal condition, I wonder if it is time to consider the malignancy of politeness, the savagery of the civilized, how euphemism can act as its own euthanasia. There are no painless deaths. They're just those we do not name to avoid the pain, and the pain we do not name to avoid the death. On March 14th, Bawi Kungnung and his Burmese family went to Sam's Club in Midland, Texas to purchase some bread. Jose Gomez, 19, stabbed him and his 2 children because he thought the family was infecting people with the coronavirus. I scoured the internet looking for the names of these children to no avail, but I learned that Burmese children's names typically reflect the day that they were born, a cultural practice rooted in the idea that human destiny is connected to the stars. So I went outside and I apologized to them, the stars, but I'm sorry, it just felt stale, like a euphemism for something else, more honest, more just than this. In the duration it took to write this poem, 3 people died of the coronavirus. So when Sharman talked about South Asian queer resistance, I think part of that is acknowledging our heartbreak. There's so much intimate betrayal and loneliness and pain and anguish. And it often feels like there's no place to express the extent of our pain and our denial. So I see the ways in which we regurgitate that on one another. And I'm so interested in poetry being an interruption to cycles of harm and violence, and a way to actually heal so that we don't hurt others, and so that we don't transmit the same economies of misrecognition and rejection that we often experience from our families of origin on one another. And I think it's so important that we learn to love each other more than they hate us. And this poem was about my heartbreak, and my astrological sign is a Cancer, so full disclosure, I have a lot of feelings. And I'm often very sad, and I was an emo kid, and I'll always be. Impossible is a feeling. I know it like a dry mouth and you being gone, only in its effects. After looking at your photos, I spent hours splayed on my newsfeed like roadkill. Except I am both the car and the casualty. I keep running myself over like I have something to prove. Is it that I'm alive or that I'm dying or both? I do this with a stubborn conviction of a rogue cuticle. I will not be removed for the sake of appearance. I am committed to my frayed edges. I am impossible, like an early alarm clock and getting over you. Consider the extraordinary feat of a brain giving birth to an MRI machine just to spit back out its own image. We go through great lengths to see ourselves, don't we? I read x-rays like sheets of music, looking for evidence of this absence I feel, but never know. As if maybe if I just found some technical justification, a matter of structure or composition, I would understand both why you are gone and where that festers inside of me. That's where my impossible lives, that place where the things that I feel but cannot know. When the virus came, airlines began to fly ghost planes with no passengers. I'm sure that they knew this was an awful idea, wasting approximately 36,000 gallons of fuel, more than 1,000 kilograms of carbon emissions. They say it was to maintain their spot in the air traffic schedule, but I think perhaps they did it just to avoid the emptiness of the sky. It's almost as if we can't endure to see it, how things keep going without us, how you keep going without me, how our absence bears no mark. So this is my final poem, and I just keep on thinking about emotional alchemy and how to turn pain and grief and sorrow into compassion, transformation, and love. And I'm trying to do that in my life, but I think this poem kind of encapsulates where I'm at. The deepest breath. On the other side of now, when this is all over, I want to attend a funeral every day. I will sit at the back silently crying. When they ask how I knew her, I will smile through the tears. I didn't, but I loved her because once upon a time she breathed, which means that the particles that touch the deepest parts of her, she exhaled them and somehow they found their way to me. I am the product of everything that is and was, all that has lived and all that has died on this earth. I'm sorry that it took a virus to help me remember that simple fact, that we all breathe the same air. Thanks so much, everyone. And I look forward to Fatima.
Thank you, Alok. Thank you. Please continue chatting in your questions. Our last performer of the night is Fatima, and I just wanted to really talk about how important queer resistance has been to reimagining a different world. South Asians and those who have been in the Indo-Caribbean diaspora and those who are in New York, in America, and other epicenters of the virus right now, we're witnessing queer resistance and the models that have been used to support mutual aid networks for generations in the queer community be replicated right now. I'm in the epicenter of the epicenter in Queens right now, and what I'm seeing is a rise of feminists, people who identify as femme, queers, people who are often the poorest and the least resourced, put in extra time, overtime, to deliver groceries, supplies, and resources through mutual aid networks. And I'm watching how so much of queer resistance, which has always been taking care of those who are on the margins, those who the state excludes, those who are often forgotten by our upper caste and wealthy folks in our community, organize. They're organizing to survive. They're organizing to support livelihoods beyond this virus, through this virus. And I really want to uplift how important these models have been for us to reimagine a new world. And, you know, in inviting these artists, we are really trying to bring forth a new language. We're trying to bring forth a new way of talking about our trauma and our pain, but also remembering that those of us that are you know, working class, poor, queers that are on the margins, we've always said the system is meant to destroy. We've always been arguing that capitalism is the disease, that we need to organize systems that are going to destroy and dismantle capitalism and Hindu fundamentalism and Islamophobia and all the other structures that are looking to destroy our resilience. So I just want to uplift that important work and name that this has been a legacy of all of us for a while, and we're going to continue doing that work. But I do think this is also the work of challenging fascism and the way that it's creeping into our communities and our homes. Our last speaker of the night is Fatimah Asghar. She's the creator of the Emmy-nominated web series Brown Girls. She is the author of If They Come For Us, and a recipient of the 2017 Ruth, Lilly, and Dorothy Sargent Rosenberg Fellowship. In 2017, she was listed on Forbes 30 Under 30 list. Welcome, Fatimah Asghar.
Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. So thank you, Charmin, Equality Labs, for having us. Priyanka and Alok, your poems are beautiful. Your art is beautiful. Your existence is so beautiful. I feel really honored to be here with everybody. And everyone who's here in the chat and everything, it's so lovely. Okay, so I'm just gonna read some poems. So I grew up in the United States, there's, for those of you who are not in the United States, there is a place called Old Country Buffet, which is like the you know, cheapest like buffet kind of thing around. And this poem is called Old Country. Old Country Buffet, where our family went on the days we saved enough money. Everyone was in a good mood, even Ulu, our uncle who never smiled or took off his coat and dyed his hair black every 2 weeks so we couldn't tell how old he was. We marched single file towards the gigantic red lettering across the gravel parking lot to announce our arrival. We, children, carrying our rectangle backpacks brimming with homework, calculators, and Lisa Frank trapper keepers, for we knew this was a day without escape, spread out across all the booths possible while our family ate and snuck food into the Tupperware they smuggled in. And no matter how we begged and whined or the waitress yelled or threatened to charge us more money, we weren't leaving until my greedy ass family had their fill. Oh, Old Country, the only place we could get dessert and eat as much of it as we wanted before our actual meal. The only place we didn't have to eat all the meat on our plates, or else we were accused of being wasteful, told our husbands would have as many pimples as rice we left behind. Here, our family reveled in the American way of waste. Manifest destinied our way through the mac and cheese and green bean casseroles, mythical foods we had only heard about on TV, where American children rolled their eyes in disgust. Here, we learned how to say, I too have had meatloaf and hate it. Evidence we could bring back to the lunch table as we guessed what the other kids ate and they scoffed at our biryani. Here, the adults told us if we didn't like the strawberry shortcake, we could eat the ice cream, or Jell-O, we could get a whole plate just to try a bite and turn up our noses, and that was fine. Here, we loosened the drawstrings on our shalvars and gained 10 pounds. Here, we arrived at the beginning of lunch hour and stayed until dinner approached, until they made us leave. Here, we learned how to be American and say, we got the money and we're here to stay. So my book, If They Come For Us, kind of goes over a lot of different themes, a lot of things around being Muslim, about being South Asian, about being Pakistani and Kashmiri, about being queer. And in particular, it deals a lot with partition. It kind of looks at the historical lineage of partition with my own family and then today. And so this poem is called Partition. You're Kashmiri until they burn your home, take your orchards, stake a different flag, until no one remembers the road that brings you back. You're Indian until they draw a border through Punjab, until the British captains spit baki as they sip your chai, add so much foam you can't taste home. You're Shriki until your mouth fills with English. You're Pakistani until your classmates ask what that is. Then you're Indian again, or some kind of Spanish. You speak a language until you don't, until you only recognize it between your auntie's lips. Your father was fluent in 4 languages. You're illiterate in the tongues of your father. Your grandfather wrote Persian poetry on glasses. Maybe, you can't remember, you made it up. Someone lied. You're a daughter until they bury your mother, until you're not invited to your father's funeral. You're a virgin until you get too drunk. You're Muslim until you're not a virgin. You're Pakistani until they start throwing acid. You're Muslim until it's too dangerous. You're safe until you're alone. You're American until the towers fall, until there's a border on your back. This next poem is called Kal. Allah, you gave us a language where yesterday and tomorrow are the same word. Kal, a spell cast with the entire mouth, back of the throat to teeth. Tomorrow means I might have her forever. Yesterday means I say goodbye again. Kal means they are the same. I know you can bend time. I'm merely asking for what is mine. Give me my mother for no other reason than I deserve her. If yesterday and tomorrow are the same, pluck the flower of my mother's body from the soil. Kal means I'm in the crib, eyelashes wet as she looks over me. Kal means I'm on the bed, crawling away from her, my father back from work. Kal means she's dancing at my wedding, not yet come. Kal means she's oiling my hair before the first day of school. Go means I wake to her strange voice in the kitchen. Go means she's holding my unborn baby in her arms, helping me pick a name. This next poem is called When the Orders Came, and it starts with an epigraph. I'm sorry that I'm not very good at banter, so I'm just reading my poems. This next poem starts with an epigraph from Donald Trump's administrative team on December 7, 2015, which is, "We are calling for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States. When the orders came, they shipped us to the sanctuary camps and we forgot our other countries. Like good school children, we sang the anthem loud, so loud until we could hear nothing else. Not the birds delighting over their young, or the dogs snarl at our feet, or him on the news hourly growling. This is the cost of looking the other way when they come for us. I build safety inside you and wake in cuffs. I'm all mouth. Every morning I whisper, my country, my country, my country, and my hands stay empty. What is land but land? A camp but a camp. Sanctuary but another grave. I am an architect. I permission everything into something new. I build, and someone takes it away." This next poem is called Boy. What do I do with the boy who snuck his way inside me on my childhood playground? The day other kids shoved my body into dirt and christened me, he appeared, boy, wicked, feral, swallowing my stride. The boy who grows my beard and slaps my face when I wax my mustache. He was there too, the day on Ben's couch, wearing my skirt, ranking the girls in class. Again, his legs slamming concrete, my chest heaving when we ran from cops the night they busted the river party. Again, when I smashed the jellyfish into the sand and grinded it down to a pink, useless pulp. Together, we watched it throb, open and close, begging for wet. He was there. I have a boy inside me and I don't know how to tell people. Like when that man held me down and we said no. And my boy, my lovely boy, he clawed and bit and cried just like we were back on the dirt playground, scraped wrists and steady pounding, his eyes wide until he stopped making a sound. Okay, the next poem I'm going to read is a new poem. I wrote it in quarantine, and I'm excited because it's new. So yeah, it's really brand new. So it's like unedited. But when we thought the world would end, I didn't think it would be like this. Watching my beloveds through FaceTime, the tens of apps downloaded so I can hear the scattered voices of everyone I love. And the silence of my apartment building so loud. My whole world is now my kitchen and yellow couch, and I haven't touched anyone in days. My fingers press into my own body. I surprise myself in the mirror. It's raining outside and my skin feels so hollow. The meditation says to think of a happy day. And I remember being packed in that wooded house for Angel and Hugh's graduation, and Inez saying, "The bitch can't dance," as I wiggled my flailing body, trying, and how easy it was to hold Safia's hand, my knee against Shira's in the back of the minivan, to brush the hair out of Sam's eyes as we played Ja Rule too loud on the way to weep at our friends graduating the bitch of an MFA, the years we've all spent in heartache of a thing we might be good at, the years spent changing cities, moving farther and farther from our loves because this might be it, and might is a strong word, like this might be our new lives and this might be forever, the ellipses of waiting and all the mights pile up together around my bed. In the morning, I have to sift through the mights to make my day worthwhile, to push my body into prayer. I have to work to not let the mites get stuck in my chest, to not drown in their sorrow. And we've spent years preparing for the apocalypse. when the white boys took up torches, and when that idiot got elected and ice continued to melt. But I never thought it would be like this, us all islanded, watching each other on screens, and before, when we could hold each other, when we didn't know it would end like this. Dinez and I promised when the world was really coming to an end, like truly coming to an end, we would find each other in our best dresses. I would maybe even buy a fur, and we'd ride it out together. And on the phone, we say, well, bitch, this might be it. Okay, I'm gonna read one more poem and then I'm done. Thank you all so much for your time. This poem is called If They Come For Us. These are my people, and I find them on the street and shadow through any wild, all wild. My people, a dance of strangers in my blood. The old woman's sari dissolving to wind, Bindi, a new moon on her forehead, I claim her my kin, and so the star of her to my breast. The toddler dangling from stroller, hair a fountain of dandelion seed at the bakery, I claim them too. The Sikh uncle at the airport who apologizes for the pat down, the Muslim man who abandons his car at the traffic light, drops to his knees at the call of the azan, and the Muslim man who drinks good whiskey at the start of Maghrib, the lone khala at the park, bearing her kurta with Crocs, my people, I can't be lost when I see you. My compass is brown and gold and blood. My compass, a Muslim teenager, snapback and high tops gracing the subway platform. Mashallah, I claim them all. My country is made in my people's image. If they come for you, they come for me too. In the dead of winter, a flock of aunties step out on the sand. Their dubbattas turn to ocean. A colony of uncles grind their palms and 1,000 jasmines bell the air. My people, I follow you like constellations. We hear glass smashing the street and the night's opening dark. Our names, this country's wood for the fire. My people, the long years we've survived, the long years yet to come. I see you map my sky, the lights, your lantern long ahead, and I follow. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Fatimah. Someone asked what the name of your apocalypse poem was.
The name of my apocalypse poem, I think, is called something like, I closed it, but I think it's called something like it was the first line. It was like when I thought the world was gonna end, I didn't know it would be like this, or something like that.
Amazing. And during the Q&A, y'all, you can continue asking when the poets are gonna have new poetry available. I know many of you chatted that in. So right now, we're gonna pass it over to Monica, who is our communications director at Equality Labs, and she is going to be facilitating a Q&A with the artists. So please go ahead and turn on your videos, artists, and you can unmute yourselves as you wish, and I'll be letting you know things in the chat. Welcome back, everyone.
Hi everyone. It's really nice to meet you virtually here, and I know it's not ideal, like Fatimah said in that poem. This is not what we thought the end of the world was going to look like, but we got a lot of questions in, and some of them we'll be answering live, and some of them are just my questions that I was thinking about before this reading and just have for our writers. So thank you so much, Priyanka, Alok, and Fatimah. What a gift to be able to hear you today, and also what a gift to have your art and writing in my home. I'm really reflecting on how you dealt with grief and borders and history in your writing. And like Charmin, I'm also in New York City, and it is the center of this crisis, and I feel like every day we're being confronted with like new ways that our humanities are challenged, and our ability to care for people is challenged, and we constantly have to expand what we're able to process. But all of your poems really reminded me why it's so important not to become desensitized and to find ways to cope. We got a lot of different kinds of questions, and I'll kind of try to categorize them, because we got some questions about the way you write, and we also got questions about your cultural backgrounds and experiences to South Asian diasporic writing. And I have my own question that I'll start with, which is, the reason we're here, the reason we're gathered like this is because of a pandemic. And I'm wondering, you know, how you all spoke to this a little bit, but has this experience of disaster and community made you reflect on how you write and your art? What kind of lessons are you taking from this moment? And you can, you know, popcorn, or all of you can speak, or yeah. Or I can call
okay,
on.
I'll go. I think for me personally, I don't think I'm really doing well in this pandemic in terms of writing and art, but I'm definitely giving myself like the space to think about how I'm dealing with this, because I think for me personally right now is there's like a lot of concentration of grief. And as an art, I think like being on the internet as well and being a creator, you're constantly pressured into putting out work, especially when you feel the need to document all of this. And that's something I'm not doing this time, because I feel like I need to deal with it without like, because at now it's at like a concentrated stage of what I'm feeling, of because I'm at home and I'm not in like the best space. I don't really like being at home a lot. So I think I'm waiting and seeing how I manifest my emotions, where they go, where they take me, and then probably create art. It's writing right now is not being done.
Yeah,
oh, sorry, Fatimah, you.
Okay. So I think I really agree with what Priyanka says. And I think, you know, I think when this first started, I was like so frustrated because I saw so many people, so many artists like kind of posting these things that were like, well, now is the time to work on that artistic project you haven't done. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, people are dying. Like, people were so angry. I'm like, cool, if your way of dealing with that is like by making art and by going into that space, that's awesome. That's amazing. Like, that's great. But that's not everyone's way. And to kind of the pressure of like output in general is so bizarre to me. Like, there's just a way where when you're an artist, like literally, I kid you not, when I dropped my book, people were like, well, what are you writing next? I was like, bitch, did you read my book? Like, you haven't even, like, what are you talking about, you know? And so there's just a way where like the kind of way of consumption of art, like not only artistry, but artists is so intense. And it's so like, people just eat you like popcorn, like you're nothing, like being. And I think that there's a way where like, particularly in the pandemic, like, I saw this tweet that was like, you're not like working at home, you're working from home during a global crisis. And like that, I think, was like a really important distinction, where it's like, this isn't like a vacation or a staycation or whatever, like this isn't a retreat. What this is like a real global moment where people are being affected, where we're being affected, where everything is happening. And whatever people have to do to take care of themselves, I think is so important. So sometimes if I write, like, great, you know, like that makes me feel good and I'm glad I did that. But like, I'm not putting a lot of pressure on myself right now to do that, because what's more important is that I feel like I'm taking care of myself and my communities and the people I care about while we're kind of dealing with an unprecedented moment.
I was going to say that I feel like I have a clarified understanding on why I'm an artist. I think that like I constantly have this existential crisis of like, what is the purpose of poetry? Like, and I started really, April was National Poetry Month, and I challenged myself to write every day for National Poetry Month, which I never do. And I was writing myself, as I do when I write, into my own existence, and being like, oh my gosh, this is why I write, because I am a grief worker. Like I understand myself to be doing kind of like emotional mortuary work, meaning I believe that it's so important that we feel the things that we put off feeling, because if we put them off, we forget that they're in the other room doing push-ups, and they get stronger and stronger and stronger and then overwhelm us. And my job is to feel the things that other people maybe can't feel right now, and to create work that allows people to at least momentarily access that feeling, that nostalgia, that loss, that fear, and to realize that accessing that feeling actually has profound implications for the world, because so much of what I diagnose to be wrong with the world is unprocessed grief, unprocessed pain. And as a poet, I want to create work that allows people to articulate the wound, because so often people don't even know how to describe the violation. And I think especially when we're talking about trans femininity and trans womanhood, we lack a vocabulary to describe the violations we experience. So the only way that we're seen is by simile or metaphor, meaning it's kind of like what happens to cis women or what happens to gay men. We don't have our own vocabulary to describe this is the violation. And I think that's what I was trying to do with my first book, Femme in Public, is to come up with vocabulary to describe anti-trans violence. But I think now in the second collection I'm working on right now, I'm trying to describe vocabulary to describe intangible forms of grief and sorrow. So my working title is Dying is the Longest Verb That I Know. And almost every poem I'm writing right now is just about death and loss and grief. And I'm realizing so much of what I believe poetry to do is to create language when the dominant vocabulary doesn't work.
Yeah, and I think that those are such critical reminders, even in the nature of the questions we're getting, because we're getting all these questions like, what are you writing next? And when can I hear you next? And I think like as writers and artists in the public, I'm sure you experience those pressures. I also, we got so many questions, but I definitely think that I want to think about the ways we in the space are building care together and coming to new kind of understandings. So some of the questions that we've received, I really think are answered in the writings that all of these artists have done already. And so I'm not going to necessarily like go for those questions, but try to go for the ones where we're like coming to new understandings. There was one really poignant one that I'll read the quote that someone shared from Ocean Vuong. It's really beautiful. Ocean Vuong, in a recent conversation with Krista Tippett, talks about how the future isn't in our hands, it's in our mouth. And also how in the Death Cult of America, Global English, it is QT Pak who mouthed the words, I live, in an argument against the culture of slaying, killing it, bagging her, the language of war and death. If the future is in our mouths, how do each of y'all speak to the ways we live in cultures of death? And I think that, Alok, you really did reflect on that just now and in your poetry, but it's a really gorgeous question. Does anybody want to?
I'll begin, and then hopefully we can maybe do like a reverse, so it's like a seesaw kind of moment. I think about this a lot, and I love that interview that Ocean did with Krista Tippett. So everyone, please like listen. I just sobbed when I listened to it. But for me, speaking is not just about the mouth. And I think for a long time, I felt part of when Fatimah is talking about the pressure of being a public-facing artist, I think that another component of it is people want you to choose your lane. So you're a poet, or you're a filmmaker, or you're a musician. But I actually am I'm a lot of things. And poetry for me is a modality of living in the world. It's not just written form. Like when I compose or design an outfit, that's also an extension of my poetic work. And so for me, being is my art project, and all the poems and the designs and the whatever I'm doing, those are reflections of my being, which is my ultimate art project. And so I think that we have to really live the kind of lives that we want to manifest in the world. And we have to kind of embody, and I think a lot about embodiment, we have to actually embody the kind of being, the kind of compassion, the kind of love, the kind of whim, the kind of humor, the kind of camp that we want other people to express in the world. And I think that that's often really difficult for people to understand, which is artists are not just be able to be instrumentalized for other people's movements, we're also doing intimate self-work to actually imagine what healing for us looks like, and that we're staging our healing in so many of our mediums. And in that process, we're hoping that people will get the kind of vocabulary or aesthetics or images or details that can help them stage their own healing.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful answer. And I really agree with a lot of that. And I think I had one of my favorite poets who's like a mentor of mine, Ross Gay. We were emailing during the pandemic, and he I was talking about how I was hopeful that we could usher in the death of capitalism and that bring upon a new kind of thing. And he was saying like, yeah, you have to dream it, and you have to dream it every day. And every day you have to look for the things that get you a little closer to making that not just a dream and part of reality. And I think that like your imagination, the imagination of an artist, but the imagination of anybody is really like those first moments of possibility, of thinking of what could be a new future, right? And so I'm always so interested in that, and like, and not only like what could be a new future, and that is so predicated on what came before, right? And why partition I think is so important in the work that I write about, or why our histories are, you know, like queer history, non-binary history, like why that is just so integral and so important to us is because we need it in order to usher forward, right? We can't create on the idea that we just start from scratch. Like that is violent. That's a deeply violent practice. And so once we kind of are able to acknowledge history and then build from that path forward, I think that there's so much beauty and possibility. And then also beauty in the range of human emotions. Like I think for me, I too, like Alok, am someone who, and Priyanka, who work in multiple genres, right? I'm a poet and I'm writing a novel right now, and a filmmaker. And I think there's just such a way in which that rigidity of like, well, this is what you're supposed to do, or your poems are even a step further, like your poems are about this, or you write sad poems, or you write whatever, you write things about grief, right? I think that it's such a damage, because when you're thinking about a human, you're thinking about the complicated feelings that everybody experiences, which go from a range of incredible ecstatic joy to deep, deep, deep sadness, right? Like you have such a wide range of what it means to be a person, and our art, all of our art reflects all of that in a myriad of ways, right? And so I think to me, what I'm starting to get more excited about in my work is less about defining it and just more about making it, right? So just more about what's the next project, what is the next thing I'm doing, what is this next thing that really, really excites me and allows an opening and a window, versus like who am I, or like what do people expect from me, because that actually is a projection, and that's not important. But what is important is to do, as Alok is saying, the internal deep self-worth work, and to realize what you want to make out of that.
I don't really know what more to add, because all of that was perfect and like completely exactly my thoughts. But if I had to add to that, I'd say I think often when I think of my work and I think of the idea of speaking truth to power, and I think it's really important to be speaking your truth, because narratives like ours are so there. And I think when you create that space, you give the ability to others to do that as well. And then there's just so much more storytelling, which is what we need. And I completely agree when Fatimah said that we need to let people know about our histories, and so then we can continue ahead with this. I also think about personally as an artist, and when I use different mediums, I'm trying to express myself and learn and grow through all of the things I do. I don't even know how to like have a good bio. I don't know what to say. When it's like, what do you do? And I'm just confused, because I do a lot of things. And I think it's often about like, I've in a way made it seem like my entire existence is to prove my existence to you. But my existence is based on just me having to exist. Like, I just want to exist. And I think it's so difficult for that, especially from a lot of us who come from spaces of marginalization, where you're constantly having to justify who you are. And I think the work has been the only fact that we can do this is because someone before us did it, and we can do this so that more people can have more stories to be told, you know, like where someone has to start somewhere. Because I think I started illustrating just like normal things, drew flowers, and I think somewhere along the lines, as you read and as you realize, you get the power to do that. And I think that's yeah.
Yeah, and I think in so many ways, all of your poems kind of touch at the fact, you know, all of you talked about bending time, or time as like a real thing, and that grief and death are not like contained processes. They're beyond this moment, and they extend into the past, they extend into the future. And you know, like Alok said, we're trying to, as South Asian queer artists, queer people, we're trying to alchemize so many types of grief, and not like make it so that we have to like process these things, you know, by tomorrow or by the time this like lockdown lifts or whatever. So there were some specific questions directed at each of you, and I'll start with Priyanka. The first, a question that a few different people asked were, you know, how do you, being in India currently, what kind of angers you about performative South Asian solidarity? What do you see about it? Do you ever, you were reflecting on it in one of your poems, and how do you specifically experience it?
Definitely, because I find myself in circles where I'm surrounded by a lot of Savarna people, that is upper caste people, or people who are not from a lower caste, or like Bahujan or Dalit identities. And I feel like there's a very Western view on even something like social justice. So you understand it because there's not a lot of, because even when social justice in India is in the realm of like the academics, it's not something that's like mainstream content. Like you don't have influencers talking about things like caste or Islamophobia widely. Like it's still a niche topic, and I think that's what needs to change. So even in my circles, I think it's like a constant conversation that you need to be having. And I think for me personally, it was like I had to come out as being a Bahujan. I saw the world change around me. Like the way people talk to you, the way they treat you automatically changes because they know some part of your identity now. It's like being vocal about it turns you into something else, because of how just everyone just assumes that the norm is being upper caste. In like spaces where you do tend to have people around you like that, it's like you're an alien of some sorts. So I definitely see that in my work, and I see that around because my work is all about social justice, and I see a lot of young people talking about these things today. There's a lot of conversation about being woke, and I definitely think that is good and that is important, and there's also need to build from that. I think you can have a conversation, and the point of a conversation is to delve deeper into it. So I think that's what I do with my work, and I do it in terms of how I feel about it, because I think that's what I know best. I know what I know best. So I just share my my experience of being a Bahujan woman.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that with us through your art and writing. The next question that we had was for Alok, which was, and actually it's on a similar line, but like how do you make your anger and disappointment coherent to those you love or those who don't understand you, or do you?
I suppose I'm less interested in coherence than I am in being felt. And I sound so stereotypical saying this, so this is like classic Alok right now, and I'm very self-aware. I think that we have been primed into a society that requires us to be understood in order to receive basic respect. And I'm not interested in being understood, because that's another form of containment. Because you will never actually know me. And I think that is what, for me, disability justice has taught me, that actually there's a myth that there's one mind. We're all actually different minds. And that the profound intimacy of living in the world is that we could speak to each other forever and only know 1% of one another's composite. And that's incredible to me. But I think the crisis of Western imagination is the desire to know, which is another form of conquest, of like, let me accumulate as much knowledge as possible. But I'm not interested in that pursuit. I really want to feel and be experienced. And I think everyone is an artist, classic Alok. It's just that artists are people who like can't interact in a world that says, hey, be a rational, autonomous, like self-knowing person. We're like, no, like I'm feeling. And I just feel like people have been dispossessed of their ability to feel and not given permission as a way to feel. And I want to give permission to everyone to feel the fullest extent of your scream and your sorrow and your rage and your anger, because when you feel it, you actually develop a different relationship with it, where it's not consuming you. And emotion becomes like an eyeshadow, like you can gradient it. And there's a kind of beauty to it. As Fatima is recognizing, you recognize the beauty of even difficult emotions, because you realize that you have to have suffered to experience what joy actually is. You won't know joy unless you know suffering. And this is a long-winded way of saying, I gave up, because I think at the beginning of my career, the work I was making was, here's my oppression, here's my identities, understand me, love me. And that came from a deeply real place. But I realized no one is ever going to get me. And I think that used to devastate me growing up, being like, I want people to understand me. And then I realized, no, that's actually amazing. That is incredible, that I am so weird and that I'm so strange and erratic and eccentric, that no one is ever going to get me. And that's okay. So let me show them different iterations of me. And I gave up on having one static self, and I became deeply ambivalent about living. And performance was not just about the stage, it was about everywhere. It's about the Zoom call, darling. It's about getting ready for today. And that every day was just a new way of incarnating a different part of myself. And the way that that relates to other people is I just leave traces of what I feel. And I hope that some people will resonate. And if they don't, that's okay. Because at the end of the day, my calibration became about exercising my interiority, my truth, and my vulnerability. And I recalibrated the goal from being accept me to your acceptance is cute, like it's nice, but I accept myself. And that's what matters the most. Classic Alok, I'm so sorry.
I think we all love classical. And also someone actually said when you were reading that they felt like, actually all of you were normalizing the abnormal. And they felt really accepted in like their abnormality and their eccentricity and weirdness. So I think you're resonating with that. There was a question for Fatima that was like, in your poetry, there are so many different apocalypses and so many different ends of the world. Partition being one, this moment, the future apocalypse that we don't know, what it brings. The ice is still melting. So the question was, what, kind of in the vein of Adrienne Marie Brown, like what's in your apocalypse survival kit? What's in your starter kit?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're always living in the apocalypse. Like, I just think we always are. There's always, literally from any moment in which any one of us is born, there's a crisis where everybody's like, now is the time, and you're like, okay, but it's been a minute. So I think that that's why it's such a fixture in my work, is the idea of the end, the idea of change being the end, of death being the end, of all of that kind of coming up and up and up so often. In my apocalypse survival kit that's a great question. I have been really thinking about that a lot because we're in quarantine, and it's like, what are the things that you reach for? And something that I found, like Alok was saying, like the process of getting ready is like so important to me and to survival. And so like in any apocalypse, like I'm gonna be the bitch that's getting ready. Like I'm gonna be like in it and like excited and like what's like how do we do this? So definitely that. I think I have been reaching a lot for my tarot lately, for my John Namaz lately. I have so many books that I'm reaching out for. I also just bought a ton of new vibrators, and it's just been really great. And so that's definitely in my apocalypse survival, because pleasure is in my apocalypse survival. Yeah, and I think also it's like the space, like having space to think, having space to be quiet, having all of that is just, it's so precious to me. And so that's definitely something that I kind of like really keep with me and carry with me.
Yeah, Sherman and I were joking that when this, like when we're able to go outside again in New York, we're just gonna be like serving looks after looks. Like we're gonna be like, I'm dressed in like the nicest thing I have every single day to like go eat lunch. So yeah, relatable.
On this as well.
Say that again?
I think we're serving looks on this as well.
That's true. That's true. You definitely are. Yes. And so there's I'm gonna probably do like 2 more questions. One is like amalgamation of like what a lot of people asked in very different ways, but the way I'll like try to articulate it is how is each of your work, whether it's writing or not, kind of haunted by, informed by, visited by the legacies of oppression that are specific to South Asian community. And you've all spoken about it in different ways, but somebody asked, you know, do you bring in any confused spirituality into your work? Do you ever deal with like, you know, these internal hegemonies in your work that are relevant to the South Asian diaspora, and how do you deal with them? Do you grapple with hypocrisy? Basically, like just a larger question around being South Asian, writing in this moment, and how that visits your work.
Yeah, I can start with that. I think definitely. I think every single thing I do is, you know, is just by being South Asian that I almost have a hard time. Like I have a hard time answering questions like these because I have a hard time parsing out like what is and is not, you know, because for me it's a lens in which I walk my entire life, you know, I view my entire being existence in the same way that so is my sexual identity, my gendered identity, like all of that is so important. And to me, I write a lot about being Muslim. Like I am Muslim. I am I've been Muslim my whole life, and I think the ways in which I write a lot about the ways in which South Asian people are divided along religious lines, and the kind of fracturings that we've had because of that. I write a lot about history, about South Asian history. I write a lot about growing up with Islamophobia. You know, I write a lot. I'm also, my parents died when I was really, really young. And so my relationship to like growing up as a Muslim has just really my ideas of what it means to be South Asian and trying to learn what it means to be South Asian. And I think I will spend my whole life trying to learn what it means to be South Asian, what it means to be Muslim, what it means to be my particular gender, what it means to be my particular sexuality. Like, I don't think that those things are fixed or that there's any answer to that. And so that's such a blessing that my whole life I'm going to be learning what that means. And my art is going to be exploring all of the avenues of what that means. And like Alok said, like at every single facet, it can mean something different. It could mean something different the next. And I think that to me, what that feels like is possibility and freedom. And that is exciting, is like orienting about writing about some of that stuff so that there can be solidarities that are form so that there can be new forms of freedom, forms of possibility.
And before that was so poignant, and I feel like before the other's answer, I would say like for Equality Labs, obviously that's the main kind of like that's our North Star, and our main something that we're constantly thinking through is just like what does it mean to build community space of like constant harm and so many eternal history, and also like maintaining the kind of strength of our collective legacy and also our specific legacies.
I think there's this really homogeneous idea of what we consider South Asian, or the ability to term everything as brown, which I think is definitely an injustice that we do to the variety and the diversity that this region has to say in terms of be like gender identity, caste, religion, class. I don't think that it can be termed as one thing, and it shouldn't be for sake, because there's literally hierarchies in everything in place. I think intersectionality comes into play very importantly when I talk about my work per se. I think because I sometimes I think I talk about too many things, because I'm talking about like constantly talk about things like caste and religion, about being queer in India, and I feel like when you do that, you're automatically bound to face opposition, because obviously given the current state scenario of the country and internalized like ideas of supremacy, I think that's constantly attacked. And as an artist, I feel you're constantly asked that, is it worth doing this? Is it because you're sort of putting your life and mental health on an edge when you do that? And also, where does this voice go? Because there's only a certain limit to where it'll go. There are just so few spaces where voices like these are accepted. So I think for me, it's asking that question. I ask myself that question every day. It's like, and I get an answer back is that it's important. If it's not important to a lot of people, it's important to me, because I had to normalize my existence by telling it to myself. And I think every time I put my work out, or I'm talking here on this live, I'm reiterating it to myself. And if no one else is helping me, or it's helping 2-3 other people, and in the ways that we talk and document our lives, because for most part of it, we can feel like aliens within our own spaces. And I feel art is one of the most important things that can take that away, this feeling of alienization.
So many things are circulating, so I'll try to be brief. I feel like what Fatima was saying about like being works in progress, like figuring it out continually, really resonated with me, because I feel like so much of what the structure of diaspora has been in my experience was like complete erasure of legacies of caste apartheid, of legacies of Islamophobia, of legacies of transfemininity, like just creating equations like growing up where I felt like being queer and being Indian were impossibly irreconcilable. And that's just so absurd whenever you learn about what actually is going on. So I think so much of my life has been just like figuring it out. And I think especially as a trans feminine person, there's this kind of like deep pain, because it's not even, some of us are not even allowed to speak because the violence happens even before we articulate. Like South Asian spaces have been the most violent to me because of gender violence and intimate violence. And I feel most afraid for my life and most in danger often in South Asian spaces because of my gender. And so there's this intense way in which like I want so badly, but that I'm afraid. And so that sort of back and forth, I think, is also part of that mobility, is also trying to figure out how to like recommit, and how to like hold, and how to like forgive, and how to like dream, and how to manifest. And I think one of the things that's been really helpful for me personally is developing relationships with trans communities in India, and partnering with trans organizations in India, and just like learning so much and being reparented. And I think that's one of the beautiful parts about being trans, is so often people speak about trans life as like abject and sad and like difficult. And of course that's true, but also how wonderful it is that we can call other people mother, and how wonderful it is that we can reparent and rebirth. And I feel like so much of my life has been about rebirthing and trying to meet the people who actually can teach me the things that I want to know. And I think the people's movement in India is ongoing and has been there for a very long time. And there's so much to learn. And I think, yeah, I guess just long-winded way of saying works in progress, reparenting, being forgiving also of ourselves and one another. Because I think there's this tendency to locate always in individuals. And I think that that's I have a lot of hesitation around that. I'm much more interested in how we can think about how structures create certain possibilities and eclipse others. Okay.
No, I mean, I think that all of those things, I think they're so relevant to like how we shape like organizationally a mission to do that, and how we, for example, even as an organization, we're a work in progress in terms of like, this kind of like community building has been done by us in our specific communities, but not on this level. And it really is an experiment that's a work in progress for like how our communities deal with hegemonies. I just wanted to read out that somebody wrote, Fatima, so many of the themes I found in your writing are things I've been exploring my whole life in my own writing, as also a Pakistani Muslim, and seeing you phrase those ideas so beautifully really grounds me. And I just want to say thank you and love you.
Oh, that means so much. I love you too.
And so I think we're gonna kind of round out and close now, and I'll ask one last question. We got 2 questions for everyone that were basically, what's bringing you joy? And if nothing is bringing you joy, that's okay, because, what are you reading? What other poets are you listening to? What kind of music? I will say that all of your work is bringing me joy. I just saw Got Game, and it was really, really good, a new film by Fatimah Asghar, and excited for your new book, Alok. And I was recently in Bangalore looking during the CAA protests, and Priyanka's art was really meaningful for me. So what's happening for you?
What has been bringing me joy, I have been to a lot of Brazilian baile funk, and it's a genre of music that is just so good that I love. And if anyone else is listening to it and you want to drop suggestions in the chat, I'm so down to check them out. And I've also been currently reading Pleasure Activism, which is such an, and so I feel really, really inspired by that.
I think I have the most boring answer to this, but I think I find myself in a space where I do not want to be feeling a lot of things, so I numb myself by sleeping. Isn't the best thing to be doing, but it gives me incredible joy to have to zone out. But in other times, the thoughts of getting drunk with my friends and probably the near future gives me happiness. Yeah.
As we were speaking about before this, I've been binge watching reality television, and I just have so many thoughts. Like, I think I'm a reality TV scholar. Like, I have so much to say, and I love it so much. So I'm like up till 5 a.m. just watching the most trash reality television. I've been reading up a storm, and it's been really wonderful. I think what Fatima was saying about getting ready has been my core idea. I've been thinking about presentation and like clothing as history. So one book I'm going to recommend to people is Seeing Through Clothes by Anne Hollander. And I love Anne Hollander so much because she writes about the history of fashion and actually explains why we wear the very things that we wear. And one of the things that she makes a point in this is that when we perceive an image, we're thinking subconsciously about every other image that has been produced before it. So every image is actually haunted by the ghosts of all the images before. And the reason that that's so important to me is that it speaks to how images actually aren't just something that we see, there's something that produces realities. And so I think one of the things that's bringing me joy is creating new images. I've been playing with makeup. I've been like putting together really fun outfits, and I'm just creating a visual archive for myself that I've never seen before I think that's what I love both about Fatima and Priyanka's work as well, is that I'm just seeing bodies, and it's just honest bodies and like beautiful bodies, and it gives me permission. So thank you to you both as well.
Love you.
Yeah, I love you so much.
And I'll just, because people have been sharing so much love in the chats. Alok, I was raised in a very strict Malus Syrian Catholic household, desiring to reject my existence at every degree. You and your gave me breath. That's all. And then someone else said, Alok, I was in your feelings workshop in New York City, and I really hope I could be in a space like that in the future.
I think we kind of created a mini feelings workshop today too. I have to head out because I'm so hungry right now.
Okay. That's it. That's what I was going to say next. So we're wrapping this up. Thank you so much for being on and chatting with us and sharing your poems. I think there's a lot for people to think about. And feel free if you need to like eat and get off, like that's okay. And I'm just going to share with everybody still listening that Equality Labs, as you know, has this event for free. And so we invite you to donate on our website, equalitylabs.org/donate. Sherman shared the link in the chat so that we can continue doing more programming, because especially as in many places where we are, this pandemic, particularly social isolation, is going to go on for a while. And so we really want to provide spaces for all of you to come and join and experience care and learn and do a feelings workshop. So please donate, and also look out for our new programming, our new writing. We are publishing a new report next week on responding to hate speech that's been happening online against Muslim communities in India. We'll be doing a town hall on the experiences of South Asian communities in the United States, and we would love to know what kind of programming you want from us. We're also going to be at the Allied Media Conference, trying to build a new powerful South Asian community experience. And that's all today. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in.
Bye.
Yeah.